du Chien. Not gonna happen. So I just want to say we're pleased to be joined by so many great people, but one of them, as I said before, is Congressman Derek Van Orden, who lives just a short distance away, where a heinous sex assault that I mentioned before took place. It was terrible. And Derek, I want to thank you very much for being here. You're doing a great job. But they had a hell of a time, right?
Yes, sir.
And this was from an illegal that came in through Kamala. And that won't be the last one. It'll only get worse. It's going to get so bad that it won't be sustainable. We have to get these people out. We got to get them out of here, okay? Got to get them out of here fast. Now, the fake news would say, oh, he's such a mean person. I'm not mean. I'm a good person. I want to take care of. We got to take care of people. We've built this over 250 years. We got to take care of our country. Our country is being destroyed by these people. And you don't even know why. Are they stupid? Are they evil? Do they want us to be destroyed? It's so obvious that it can't work. It can't work. I mean, go and take a look at Springfield. Go and take a look. And the governor's a Republican. He's a nice man. I helped him very much. Without me, he wouldn't have been elected. But he's taken an attitude like, oh, isn't it wonderful? Look, you got to do what you got to do. You got to get these people back where they came from. You have no choice. You're going to lose your culture. You're going to lose your country. You're going to have crime, the likes of which nobody has ever seen before. Now, I'm speaking from common sense. You see, the Republican Party has really become the party of common sense. We need common sense now. I mean, we're not going to have men playing in women's sports. Things, we want to have a border. We want to have a border. We want to have good education. We want to have low taxes. We want to have a strong military. I rebuilt our military. Then they give away a big chunk of it to Afghanistan. In the single most embarrassing day in the history of our country. The same idiots are dealing with us now on nuclear weapons in Russia and the problems in the Middle East. We have this whole world is exploding. And you know, one of the toughest, smartest people said very nicely, Viktor Orban, he's the head of a place called Hungary. He said, if you bring Trump back, everything's going to be good. Otherwise, this whole world is going to end up in a big, fat world war. You're going to end up having it. Also with us, Crawford County Sheriff Dale McCulloch. Dale, thank you. Wherever Dale is. Thank you, Dale. Thank you. Good job. Prairie du Chien Police Chief Kyle Tiener. Kyle, thank you very much. Thank you, Kyle. Good job. And Wisconsin GOP Chair Brian Chimming. Thank you very much. Where's Brian? Oh, Brian, stand up, Brian. Are we going to win, Brian? Okay, good. Brian's doing a great job. Doing a great job. Thanks, Brian. Good job. What Kamala did not talk about in her lies last night, just lied. Everything was a lie. And I always say, why didn't she do it? You know, she's been here almost 4 years. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that. Reading off a teleprompter. Isn't it nice to have a president that doesn't need a teleprompter? But I keep asking, I said it in the debate, I said, so why don't you do it? Why don't you just do it? We're going to do this. She's been there for almost 4 years. They didn't do anything except destroy our country. So why don't you do it? Then she says about a bill. It was such a bad bill, this bill that she talks about. You know, it's a fake bill. It was put in by the Democrats with a couple of Republicans that got duped and put before. Nobody wanted to vote. She said, I'm the one that talked them out. I wish I had that ability, that I was the one that said, don't vote for it. But I do have a certain say. But I would have never voted for that bill. It was so bad. It would have allowed everybody to become a citizen. It would have allowed at least 2 million people to come into our country, and very rough ones. It was a terrible bill, but they use that as an excuse. The fact is, all she has to do is go back to the White House, wake up Sleepy Joe, it'll be 4 o'clock, so he's gone to bed, and say, Joe, get your ass down here. I'm going to ask you to do me a favor because I'm losing in the election. Sign this piece of paper. What is the piece of paper? It says to the Border Patrol, close the border. 3 words. Like I did. And we want people to come in, but we want them to come in legally. Close the border. Joe, please sign it. Please sign it, Joe. I need help, Joe. I need help. They're killing me on the border. I'm losing on the border. You know, I won in 2016 on the border. It was one of the big things. I mean, I won in a lot of reasons, but I won on the border. I won because I stopped people from coming on and killing our country with trade, or the various countries, mostly known as our friends. Our friends can be the worst on trade. Okay, they kill us more than our enemies, frankly. They sort of come underneath, and all of a sudden you realize, gee, we got taken over. But I did great on that. But I probably won on the border, and I fixed the border. And then in 2020, I couldn't even talk about it. And yet I got millions of more votes in 2020, but I still couldn't talk about it. And my people were saying to me, sir, they don't want to hear about the border because you fixed it. I said, well, I want to talk about it. They don't want to hear it. It's true. Nobody wanted to hear it. Today's border is 20 times worse than it was in 2016. 2016 was like a great day for this border. 2016, I fixed it. I built hundreds of miles of wall. I had another 200 miles, and that's much more than I promised to do, 200 miles ready to go. And when they took over, because of a rigged election, when they took over, they didn't want anything to do with putting those panels up. You couldn't put them up. They were laying right there, right next to it. I don't know if you heard this story. So, they had sections where they even said we have to build a wall. And the panels that we put up were exactly what Border Patrol and ICE wanted. Everything. They even have the anti-climb panel on top, which I hated to look at. But it made it much harder to climb. So I said, well, do I give up the look for the climb? It's called an anti-climb panel, and it's right. It's very hard to get over the top. These guys can do anything. And what happened is they didn't want to put up those. So they went out and bought a totally different panel instead of just putting up, which is nothing by comparison, not nearly as good, not as good in any way. Rather than using the panel that was sitting 10 feet away, they put different panels up. Looks like hell, too. Now you have a wall that doesn't, they say, where the hell did that come from? But they admit, I always said for years, I said, everything gets obsolete fast. Like you have a computer and you think it's great, and then 2 weeks later it's obsolete. You have a new cell phone. I love it. I love it. A week and a half later, they come out with a better one. The only things that don't get obsolete are the wheel and the wall. A wall is never obsolete. But what Kamala did not talk about in her remarks last night were the countless Americans who've been brutally assaulted and killed by illegal aliens, and she let them in. Killed. Many, many killed. Just so many people. Already. We think this is the beginning. It's not. This has been going on ever since they took over. Because from the day they took over, they said, we want an open border. And nobody believed them. It wasn't believable. And here today is Patty Morin, whose heartbreaking story is a tragic warning of what will come to every city in America with 4 more years of Kamala Harris. I can't even believe she's being considered. Look, she was considered 8 weeks ago the worst vice president in history, a very dumb person. The fake news was calling her dumb, stupid, didn't have a chance. She was at the bottom of a list of 12 candidates. They voted. She came in last. She fought Joe Biden, Crooked Joe. I call him 2 names. I call him Crooked Joe, Sleepy Joe. I'm not sure. I've never figured out which is better. He said they're both good. I agree. I actually tried them together, but it doesn't work together. I sort of interchange. But think of it. This person, what they've done to our country and what's done to Patty. She lost the most beautiful person, her daughter, you've ever seen. And I've gotten to know her and none of this would have happened. Just like the war with Ukraine and Russia would have never happened if I was president. No chance, zero chance. Putin would have never done it. Just like the attack on Israel would have never happened on October 7th. Just like that horror show, and if you look at Afghanistan, would have never happened. Inflation would have never happened. We would right now be energy dominant instead of looking for energy. You know that our reserves, we have a reserve, and it's really meant for war. It's meant for very important things, strategic reserves, right? Just reported today they're at the lowest point they've been, maybe ever, but they know in 40 years, because Biden used that to suppress the numbers, because without that, the oil prices for your car, it wasn't supposed to be for your gasoline, in all due respect, and it's peanuts compared to the amount we're talking about. But now we have the lowest strategic oil reserves in the history of our country, we think, or many, many decades. And it's a shame, but Patty's precious daughter, Rachel, was a 37-year-old mom of 5 precious children, a beautiful woman, who lived in Maryland, 1,500 miles from the border. That's a long way from the border. Earlier this year, while Rachel was out on a run, she was brutally raped and murdered by this disgusting illegal alien who was led into the United States by Kamala and her lax law. Every one of my killer. We had the great. He would have never been able to get in. She stopped every single one of them. She was the border czar. Now she doesn't admit that. Whether you call her a czar or not, she was no czar, because she really wasn't a czar. She didn't give a damn about the border. She never spoke to Border Patrol. You ever see the agents? All the top people, they never spoke to Biden or her, and yet it's like the most important thing. But Patty has suffered greatly. I've gotten to know Patty. She's a great woman, and she lost an amazing person in her family. Her family is suffering tremendously. But I'd like to ask Patty to come up and just say a few words about Rachel. Please, Patty. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I'm not a politician, so I'm not here to give you a spiel. I do want to say vote for Trump, though, because I really believe that he's going to close our borders. Rachel was a very fun-loving, down-to-earth, compassionate woman. She worked really hard. She took good care of herself, took good care of her children. And she loved people. She had a stuttering problem. So she was bullied when she was a child. So she really has compassion for other people. She was like the American mom. She took care of her kids. She worked hard. And because of this open border, her life was taken away, and her children have been robbed of their mother. And it's just, we can't have it. Another 4 years of Kamala Harris, this story is going to be multiplied by the thousands.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Just take care of yourself, okay? I'll see you later. So unnecessary. And Patty, we're so sorry for the terrible suffering that you've had to endure. I've had lunch with Patty. We've spoken to the whole family, and I've spoken to many other families, same thing, and it's incredible. It's just incredible that a thing like that could happen. No reason for who has an open border where people they don't have the names of anybody. You know, those 13,000 murderers they don't have any idea where they are, who they are. They don't have the names. We just know they're all out of jails, all convicted of really bad murders. And now they're in our country. And that's a lot of people. In honor of Rachel's life and every other victim of migrant crime, we will win this election. We will secure our border. We will secure that border on day one. I always say, they say, what are the first things you're going to do, or the first 2 things? I always say, number 1, we're closing